All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. It is Fantasy Football Live for a Monday Madness, December 18th, 2023. Christmas right around the corner. The holidays right around the corner. Um, if you're new to the channel, of course, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button. Also, if you're interested becoming a member of the channel, you can use that join button on the homepage to pick, one of the three plans. If you're interested in becoming a member, no obligation. And like I said, streams will always be free. Got a lot to get to today. Certainly want to revisit everything that took place yesterday. I know I touched on it briefly this morning in the thoughts video that I posted this morning, but there's a lot to get to. And last night we had another key injury with Keaton Mitchell going down with what was a really ugly knee injury. One of those videos that you just cringe when you look at, and he's going to be done for the season, probably maybe even have the beginning of next season threatened. It was kind of like a Javonte Williams when Williams tore pretty much everything in his knee, although he did come back for the beginning of the season, which was crazy, but just not the athlete that he was prior to the injury. So for Keaton Mitchell, that's a tough deal. Good evening, Emil. Hey, Jermaine, and what's up, boss? Yeah, won this week. Yes, I know a lot of you guys seem like you did pretty well in your matchups this week. So of course I had the two buys, but I'm looking to my matchups coming up next week. One of them in my work league, which I have the number one seed, is going to be a rough one. Down 65 in a 6-point passing TD league. Opponent says I have Hurts and Devontae Smith. Opponent has no one. I don't know what the bonuses are, but it might be tough, Bobby, especially with Hurts not being 100% health-wise. The first thing I guess I wanted to talk about today is the obvious, like the complete shit show that is the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Smith. And the best thing that could have happened to the Falcons, their fan base, to everybody here in fantasy football is they lost that game yesterday to the Carolina Panthers. And not for nothing, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield taking Tampa Bay to the playoffs. We've gone over this a million times. There's not much to add that we haven't already said. Like Arthur Smith is just everything that is wrong about a modern day NFL coach. In other words, from the very beginning, Arthur Smith has carried himself with the attitude that I know best. Like whatever I decide is going to give us the best chance to win a game. And he has arguably the best collection of offensive talent this side of the Miami Dolphins. Bijan Robinson, one of the best running back prospects ever. Kyle Pitts, arguably the greatest athlete at tight end ever coming into the draft. Drake London, universally considered a wide receiver one, the first wide receiver drafted in his draft class. He had Tyler Algier, 5th round pick, who had a really, really strong rookie season last year. All of these key pieces. And in his infinite wisdom, along with the general manager, thought that Desmond Ridder was the answer at quarterback. And remember, guys, I'm sure some of you who are in the chat right now, we talked about this in the summer, in August. And I said, there is no way this is going to work with Desmond Ridder. While he was at Cincinnati, he was not anybody's idea of a quarterback prospect. When he was with Cincinnati, he had pronounced accuracy issues. And I've said it a million times. If you struggle with accuracy in college, you're going to struggle with it in the NFL. It's very, very exceedingly rare when that skill, to make improvements in that skill. Clearly, he's not the answer. And Smith, even today, it wasn't able to willing to commit to him. Could be Taylor Heineke. Who knows? He does not have a quarterback. And one of the main off-season topics of interest for me, and I'm sure all of you, is who's going to coach this team. They almost have to hire a coach with an offensive background. All right. The Detroit Lions offensive coordinator quickly comes to mind, right? Detroit Lions offense, Jared Goff, who looked like his career was on the fast track to oblivion, becomes a Pro Bowl quarterback again with the Lions. They're churning out Amon-Ra St. Brown, tremendous draft success story. All of these speedy receivers, running backs, like this offense has been great. That's the guy that comes to mind. And if he ends up as the coach of the Falcons, then we're all going to talk ourselves back into Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Bijan Robinson is just so good, so obviously awesome that it's not going to, nobody needs convincing to go back to the well on him. 0.4 fantasy points notwithstanding. And honestly, considering this was a playoff week, this is one of the worst playoff gags of all time in fantasy football. Like, it has to be. Like, it was that bad, the Bijan Robinson fiasco. And I know he fumbled, and, Arthur Smith wanted to teach him a lesson. Tyler Algier getting all that work. Cordero Patterson getting a goal line carry. Like, just complete idiocy from this coaching staff. I know you love Rice and helped out big time. A little worried about Chase. Yeah, listen, Rashee Rice, that one was obvious from the beginning for me. I took a lot of flack early on when the snaps weren't there, when the numbers weren't exactly flowing, but he is now there as a possible low-end wide receiver one in this offense. Also, my 13-1 league. Wow, Jermaine. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of stories, a lot of bad beats. And I have to tell you, my friends and family league, I'm in this league with my father, and I played him in the finals last year and I won. But he was down after the 1 o'clock games. He was absolutely beside himself because he had benched Chris Godwin. He had benched Cole Kmet, who scored a touchdown. He had put Demario Douglas at flex. And I was like, Dad, why would you make those moves? He was absolutely beside himself because he felt that he cost himself a chance to go to the semifinals. He had an 18% chance to win going into the 4 o'clock games. But he not only had Brock Purdy still to go at quarterback, he had Christian McCaffrey. And he had the 49ers defense. And he got 8+ points from Antonio Gibson. And that put him over the top by 2 points with DK Metcalf to spare tonight. Like, it was unbelievable. And here's the thing. He also owned Josh Allen. He benched Josh Allen for Brock Purdy. And I even questioned that. I'm like, wow, the Dallas Buffalo is going to be a shootout. But Brock Purdy, is beyond legit. Kudos to my dad. Everything Brock Purdy does is just, magnificent. It really is. And he is the MVP frontrunner right now. There's no doubt about it. Now, it's interesting because he's going to be playing Lamar Jackson for the week 16. And I think whoever wins that game solidifies MVP. I think a lot of voters are looking for a reason not to endorse Brock Purdy as MVP. Oh, he's Mr. Irrelevant. I think they're using that as a clutch to, okay, I don't want to vote for him. If Jackson and the Ravens beat the 49ers, and they're absolutely capable of doing that, and it was a very impressive win over the Jaguars last night, I think Lamar Jackson is your MVP. And his odds right now, his MVP odds are good, relatively speaking, compared to CMC, compared to Brock Purdy. So I think if you're a betting man, that's what you have to do. Hate losing so much more than I like winning. Yeah, you know what? When you get this far and you don't come home with it, it's really frustrating. Rice is the new St. Brown. He could be. I think he's certainly bigger. It definitely it's a comparison I can see, Polomsky, for sure. CMC the GOAT, absolutely. The guy is just sick. There's no doubt about it. 78%, yeah, those Yahoo percentages, you really can't buy those. Fields versus Arizona, or Stafford versus the Saints. Man, Arizona does not stop anybody. I'd have to go Fields. The Saints just absolutely destroyed the Giants. Saquon Barkley only 5 fantasy points in PPR against the Saints. The Saints defense, and this was a defense, remember, I liked from the very beginning. They went through a little bit of a rough patch, but they're the real deal. Second item I want to talk about today is the New York Jets. So I think we can finally put to bed the fiasco that is Aaron Rodgers potentially coming back to the team. Like, now that the Jets, just fresh off being shut out by Miami, the most pathetic offense in the NFL, the side of New England, there's just no reason. And if Aaron Rodgers does come back and play this week, it will serve as a massive indictment on the entire Jets organization, from Joe Douglas, who should be fired, to Robert Saleh, even to the owner, Woody Johnson. It would show once and for all, which we all suspect anyway, that Aaron Rodgers is really running this organization. Now, we can all lament, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, especially Garrett Wilson. Like he would have easily posted a top shelf wide receiver 100 plus catches, 1,200 plus yards, double digit touchdowns. He would have been that good with Aaron Rodgers. And if you're a Wilson owner, you daydreamed, okay, Aaron Rodgers coming back Christmas Eve, if I'm still alive in a fantasy playoffs, that would be unbelievable. But it's not going to happen. Not with this, the nonsense that is the offensive line. Can't protect anybody. Zach Wilson suffers a concussion. Just a complete joke. Breece Hall, hell of a talent. Garrett Wilson, hell of a talent. Just nothing they can do about it. I think you're still playing those guys next week if you somehow made it through this week. But it is tough sledding for sure. No doubt about it. The third thing that I wanted to touch on right off the bat today is Trevor Lawrence. And I put the poll up there about the notion of whether he's going to live up to that number 1 overall status. Now, as you all know, I am the biggest Trevor Lawrence fan. From the very beginning, I thought this guy is a can't miss. Best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. We all know how that turned out. Andrew Luck was a absolute stud until he packed it in early. Nobody could blame him with the injuries that he suffered. This is what I thought Trevor Lawrence was. And the Urban Meyer fiasco as a rookie, we all can agree, we could throw that out, give him a mulligan. Year 2, last year, again, struggled in the beginning, but he was gangbusters the second half of the season. So it set in motion, for me especially, I was all in on him this year. I was all in on the entire Jaguars offense. Remember, Calvin Ridley, another guy I absolutely loved, made a lot of excuses for. Whereas my excuses for Rashee Rice paid off, it did not pay off for Calvin Ridley. And a lot of the blame has to go to Trevor Lawrence. He just has not taken that next step. I think Doug Peterson giving up play calling was the death knell of this offense. You saw last night against a really strong Ravens team, but against a Ravens defense that Matthew Stafford lit up last week, Trevor Lawrence could not get it done. And, other than the 2 games preceding, right before suffering the ankle injury where he was just unbelievable, it has been a really rough season for Trevor Lawrence. Hey, Gerard, how are you? Gerard, one of our members. It's very frustrating for me as somebody who was a big fan of Trevor Lawrence because the talent is so obvious. He can run, cannon of an arm, accuracy is good. It just seems like the decision making is just not there. He's throwing into double coverage a lot. I don't know if he's just not seeing the field as well as he should. I don't get it. There comes a point too where we have to stop making excuses for him. That's it. You have to just stop making excuses for him. And now Zay Jones is injured. Christian Kirk's out for the season. Travis Etienne, guys, if not for catching these passes, he would have been a 0 the last month and a half. Like, he's just not getting it done. He's on fumes. He just can't, he doesn't have any explosion in his legs anymore. And he's never stayed healthy this long into a season. So Etienne looks like complete ass right now. Oh, the Eagles D look like Matt Patricia making the calls. The Eagles defense has been very disappointing. They're good against the run. The secondary has been shredded all year. Darius Slay, James Bradbury have been bad. I don't think Geno Smith is playing. That does cloud things if you need a miracle from DK Metcalf tonight, but this is not a good Eagles defense right now. And even the offense, there's a lot of things leaking on this team, both offensively and defensively. Need 14 from D. Smith. Is it doable? Yes, I think it's doable. Sky Moore placed on injured reserve. Whether it's Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, who should have been released weeks ago, both of those guys, complete busts for the Chiefs this year. And if you can't make it on the Chiefs offense, then that's a major indictment on you. Who could be trusted next week against the Saints? You got to play them. All right. This is a really strong passing attack, especially of late. I know Cooper Kupp is now eating up a ton of targets like he's the old Cooper Kupp. I get it. But I think Nakua is still worthy of a wide receiver 3 classification. More of Ingram now? Yeah, listen, there should have been more of Ingram yesterday, and it just didn't happen. All right, another thing I saw. So Frank Emirante, who I talk about a lot on here, he's a guy that I correspond with on X. I do follow him. He put before I came on here, I saw his latest post, and um, it was very telling about the running back position. And he was correct, and it really got me thinking. Now, I'm all about the value running back in the draft this year. I was all in on David Montgomery, Rashad White, um, James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco. I drafted all of these guys. And you know what? I got the buy in both of my leagues because of this approach. But he posted that next year, a lesson for next year, it's not about how talented we think the running back is. It's about opportunity. Bijan Robinson has the most talent of any running back in football, but he doesn't have opportunity. Kyron Williams, who ran a 4.6 plus at the combine, 5th-round pick, major questions about his true ability, had the opportunity. Rashad White averaged under 4 yards per carry last year, looked awful. It was awful in September, but he had the opportunity, the share of touches, and now look at it. Rashad White and Kyron Williams are the two best value plays of the year at running back. Kyron Williams was drafted very, very late. Rashad White, round 4, round 5. So that's what we have to concentrate on next year. Opportunity share. All right. Isaiah Pacheco, James Conner, all of these guys weren't drafted in the first 3 rounds, and now look at their production. Need about 40 PPR points tonight and can only play 1. AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. I think you got to go AJ Brown. I would trust, Jalen Hurts a lot more than Drew Lock. Rashad White tip. Yep. Gerard, you're welcome. I know a lot of you guys did get Rashad White. He's been unbelievable. Like, there's just no doubt about it. All right. So some of these games yesterday, we touched on the Tampa Bay situation. They're going to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, who in a super flex league, he had a perfect quarterback rating yesterday against Green Bay on the road. Both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans 8, Rashad White as well on the ground. Like, Baker Mayfield is playing as well as he's ever played. And remember, the draft pedigree has always been there. He's a former number 1 overall pick. And the question is now, he's on a 1-year deal. It would look like he was coming aboard as a stopgap. Do they re-up him? I think you have to. Kyle Trask is not the answer. We all know that. So I think Baker Mayfield is somebody they might be interested now in signing. Like, he looks so much calmer now in the pocket. If you watch Baker Mayfield, he is much more decided in the pocket. He doesn't have the happy feet anymore, not nearly as much as he used to. Now, he played on some really bad, Carolina Panthers, Cleveland Browns weren't so great. He's playing really, really well. And this was a big-time effort there. And a terrible effort by the Packers. Do you still have confidence in Jordan Love now? I mean, Aaron Jones looked good. He got the touches. I think he'll be fine. But, Green Bay is a very young team offensively. Jaden Reed injured his toe. He's, who knows his situation. He's Deebo Samuel light. We're rolling the dice with Zeke next week. Can be trusted. Eldad, I'm not sure. I think the possibility exists that Ramondre Stevenson is going to return for this one. There's another major bust. Ramondre Stevenson, my goodness. Houston over Tennessee. CJ Stroud is still in concussion protocol. He has a chance to play next week. Noah Brown, 20-plus PPR points. He had a touchdown. It was obvious that he was going to be the guy. Nico Collins has a chance to return from his calf injury. But I think Noah Brown, we'll talk about it on Waiver Wire Tuesday tomorrow. I think Noah Brown certainly should be picked up if he's out there. Dalton Schultz as well. He had a decent day. Will Levis got banged up late in this one, ankle and a shoulder injury. Not sure if he's going to play. Derrick Henry, wow. I mean, the 20-plus touches and less than 20 yards total yesterday. Like, Derrick Henry, it happens to everybody. The wheels have completely come off. 29 years old. Austin Eckler, the wheels have completely come off. 28 years old. Now, Christian McCaffrey, 27, is the fantasy football MVP. That goes without saying. But last year, Austin Eckler at 27 was right there as the fantasy football MVP. And just a year later, he's turned to complete shit. Not saying that's going to happen to McCaffrey, but at 28 next year, 2 seasons in a row, very high usage, like Eckler, leading into this year, this is something we need to think about. For McCaffrey, we using that number 1 pick on him next year? I'm not. I didn't this year. Now, granted, I took Justin Jefferson with the number 2 pick. It was decided for me. McCaffrey went number 1, but I still wouldn't have taken it. I would have taken Jefferson. And I stand by my strategy of all wide receivers first 2 rounds. And it's worked. I got the buy in both leagues. Miami. I mean, listen, we talked about the Jets already. No need to rehash that. Tua Tagovailoa, just 1 touchdown pass. It's been a little bit of a tough go for him numbers wise of late. Now Tyreek Hill should be back next week. If you're a Jalen Waddle owner, you take what you got from this game against the Jets, and you can't expect that going forward. Hill's definitely going to play next week. He wants those the 2,000 yards. He's not going to miss any more time. Jalen Hurts or Drew Lock, you got to go Jalen Hurts. I'm not trusting a fantasy playoff matchup on Drew Lock. Kansas City over New England. Again, I know we talk about the Rashee Rice development. Travis Kelce looks like he's lost a step, although he's going to get 100 catches. Like, he's going to get there. Will Levis is dealing with a high ankle sprain, so we could be looking at Ryan Tannehill this week. Pat Mahomes is throwing the ball. He's been very careless with the football. Too many interceptions. I think Kelce has lost a step. Still a very good player. Next year, Laporta over Kelce? I think so. Kelce's going to be 36 next year. I know Tony Gonzalez aged like a fine wine, but man, I'm not doing that. Ezekiel Elliott, he got the touches, not anywhere near as good as the week before. We got to see what happens with Ramondre Stevenson this week. Need 15.82 full PPR. Brown and Walker left. Oh, yeah, I think you should get that. Absolutely. I don't think there's any question you'll get that one. Listen, Derek Carr played good against the Giants. Tommy DeVito, the back page of the New York Post today, the headline was whacked, and he was laid out, splayed out on the ground like Paul Castellano after John Gotti tuned him up. So I thought that was a really creative headline. Listen, the Giants aren't any good. We know that. It was the 3-game winning streak, that was window dressing is what that was. I mean, Tommy DeVito's a nice story. Darren Waller was back. He caught 4 passes, 8-something PPR points. He's going to up his snap share this week. I think Darren Waller, you could use him. Whereas Darren Waller looks very attractive in the preseason, all these new tight ends, Isaiah. How about next year? We might be in a situation where we decide between Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, and Trey McBride as like top 5 tight ends. I think Kelce still be a top 5. Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. I don't think George Kittle will. I think Sam Laporta absolutely is top 5. I think Trey McBride is and should be top 5. I have Trey McBride in both my leagues. If I win, it's a lot of the reasons going to be because he had 100 yards receiving yesterday. Just an unbelievable player. Yards after the catch. He reminds me of Kittle. We talked about Carolina. We're not going to go through that again. Los Angeles, Washington, Sam Howell gets benched. Jacoby Brissett comes in, throws 2 touchdown passes. Like, Brissett looked really good. I'm a fan of Sam Howell. I don't blame Ron Rivera for playing him for the duration of this season. You had to see what you had in Howell, who, remember, I've noted this many times, this guy was going to be a first-round draft pick if he came out after his junior season. He went back to school, lost Michael Carter, lost Javonte Williams, lost Diami Brown, lost almost his entire offensive line, got beat to hell, and the numbers went into the toilet, and then he wound up being a 5th-round pick, which was, way, way too harsh in terms of dinging his draft grade. He's a good player. I think he has a place as a starter somewhere. I mean, listen, put Sam Howell with the Atlanta Falcons, sign me up. His ball protection, not great. A lot of turnovers, but he's got a decent arm. He's accurate, can run. I think you have something there with Howell. But I also think long season, he might need a reset, which is why Jacoby Brissett was in there. And listen, Terry McLaurin, if you're a Terry McLaurin owner, you want Brissett out there next week. All right, San Francisco, Arizona, just silly stuff coming out of San Francisco. It's just unbelievable. I mean, even the defense is awesome. Christian McCaffrey's your fantasy MVP. Brock Purdy is your real-life MVP. The comical development of Purdy is one of the most staggering things I've seen in a really long time. For Mr. Irrelevant, literally Mr. Irrelevant. And here's the funny thing. In my work fantasy league, the very last pick of the draft was Brock Purdy. The guy who made it already had 2 quarterbacks. He's like, I'm going to be funny here. I'm just going to take Brock Purdy with the last pick. Shit. And guess who I'm playing this week in that league? The Brock Purdy owner, who benched Pat Mahomes for him. And that worked out. I talked to you about my dad benching Josh Allen. This guy in my work league benched Pat Mahomes for Purdy. What? I mean, what a story. What a story. And he's just a good guy, too. You can't help but root for Brock Purdy. And here's another example, guys. And this has to be right at the top in blazing letters in terms of evaluating quarterback prospects. Guys who throw the ball on time, accurately, and see the field, see the route develop before it even happens. Those are the guys who make it. That's Brock Purdy to a T. If you watch Brock Purdy, and I've watched every game, he throws to windows better than almost any quarterback in the game today. Tua Tagovailoa does this great as well. Whereas Mahomes, Josh Allen, they just fucking gun it in there. Tagovailoa, Purdy, they see the break before it happens, and they put the ball before the guy even turns, before the receiver turns. So, Tyreek Hill makes an in-cut, and then he turns in full stride. The ball is right there. That's what makes Tua so effective. And that is what Brock Purdy is doing. As soon as Brandon Ayuk makes his break, the ball is right there, and he doesn't even have to break stride. That's why they get these chunk yardage every single week. Why these guys are breaking off 20 additional yards after they make the catch. You can't teach that. You can't teach that kind of accuracy. And that's what makes Brock Purdy so special. Lamar Jackson guns it in. Pat Mahomes guns it in. Great players, but they don't have that innate spatial awareness, accuracy that those guys have. And Jalen Hurts does that too. Jalen Hurts is able to do that as well. Need 15.82 full PPR. Oh, I've read that already. So, yeah, you're good. Up by 25, and he has KW3 in standard league. You're Alexander. You absolutely should advance. And the Eagles are pretty good against the run. Buffalo. I didn't talk enough about Buffalo this morning. And James Cook, the situation with James Cook. If you were a Josh Allen owner, you were ripping your hair out. And the Joe Brady offense now has completely morphed before our eyes. It is no longer give the ball to Josh Allen, let him do whatever the hell he wants. While they are allowing him to run more, Brady is fully incorporating James Cook. And James Cook, how about the journey he's taken this year in fantasy football? Beginning of the season, wow, they're going to make him a bell cow back. But they're not giving him goal line. So what? He's a top running back too in PPR. Then the middle of the season comes. They sign Leonard Fournette. Latavius Murray starts getting some more work. Cook, his numbers drop sharply. They head south, and he looks like, a flex guy at best. Now, offensive coordinator change, he's a running back 1. You play James Cook over Austin Eckler right now. Hell, you might even play him over Jonathan Taylor when Taylor comes back next week. This Bills offense is now fully incorporating the run, and James Cook is up to the task. Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, where are you? Dalton Kincaid, no catches. And we talked about this. Dawson Knox back on the field. Dalton Kincaid, I don't think you could play him. I don't think you can play him. I give you these stats all the time. 1 PPR double-digit game for Kincaid with Dawson Knox this year. Just one. It's all about the trends, guys. And last night, of course, Baltimore over Jacksonville. It was another frustrating 20 PPR points for Lamar Jackson. He didn't have to throw much. Now, against the 49ers, and you think, all right, as a Jackson owner, 49ers defense, this is tough. But Kyler Murray was doing some things in the passing game yesterday. And I think certainly Jackson's going to have to throw it a lot more in this game. And he's running a little bit more as the season goes on. Yes, Isaiah Likely, absolutely to the moon. This guy is so talented. It's sick. He's caught behind Mark Andrews, though. That's the problem. I wonder if they're going to try to recidify that, maybe trade Likely. Hell, maybe trade Mark Andrews. Why not? That's the second time Andrews has been hurt in the last 3 years. They have Isaiah Likely on a cost-controlled contract. This is probably the smartest organization next to Philadelphia in the entire NFL. Don't think for a second that they won't trade Mark Andrews if they see the opportunity there. I would. Likely, he looks completely up to the task. He's faster than Mark Andrews. Now, he's not the route runner Andrews is, but he is faster. He's more of an athlete. So this is something that we got to keep an eye on for sure. 16 votes. So yeah, most people think Trevor Lawrence not living up to that draft status, and I can't say that I disagree with you. As painful as it is to say for me to admit that, because again, I'm just a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. Now, tonight, Philadelphia, Seattle, Jalen Hurts is sick. There was a video that came out of him wearing a mask. He had to take his own separate plane. I mean, I think he's got COVID. Again, you never hear about COVID anymore. Like, it's just vanished. Are NFL players immune? Like, they would not have gone to this extreme if he didn't have COVID. And, now he's going to be throwing the football. It's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Jesus, come on, man. I own A.J. Brown. Don't get him sick. But all signs point to him playing. Geno Smith looks like he's going to miss a second straight game. Drew Lock made it work, though. He was decent last week. It wasn't bad. But, again, you'd much prefer to have Geno Smith in there. That goes without saying. That's the obvious call there. All right, guys, I think I'm going to jump out here. It's getting a little bit late. Always fun doing the streams with you guys. Really appreciate it. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Become a member. If you're interested, there's going to be a lot of good stuff this offseason, so make sure you're around for that. Breaking news, guys. Geno Smith is playing. So there's a shocker. Geno Smith is playing tonight. So if you have DK Metcalf, good news. And I think you play Tyler Lockett as well, for sure. Like, I absolutely would. And you're welcome, LDOT. So, guys, again, stay tuned. A lot of good stuff coming down the pike, even though the season is winding down. So we got a lot of good things percolating for the offseason. So stay tuned for that, guys. Enjoy the game tonight. Have a good evening. We will talk tomorrow.